a warning that our next story is a sensitive one. Now, 3 years ago, many people in BC were rattled by the deaths of 3 young Indigenous women. They all disappeared, and their bodies were later found in strange and disturbing circumstances, all within weeks of each other. Now, their families raised concerns at the time that police were failing to properly investigate the cases. And CBC reporter Michelle Ghoussoub, who works with us here in Vancouver, reported extensively on 3 of the deaths, or the 3 deaths rather, and was able to uncover details about the cases at the time. Well, this month, Michelle has reopened her own investigation and has some updates. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
This goes back to the spring of 2022. Just remind us of what happened then.
Yes, this was May of 2022, and within just a few weeks of each other, sometimes within just a few days, the bodies of 3 young women were found in and around Vancouver. They were Chelsea Porman, Noelle Soup, and Tatiana Harrison. And these women were all young, they were all Indigenous, and the circumstances and details of their deaths were really disturbing. And in 2 of those 3 cases, Chelsea and Tatiana, their deaths were very quickly deemed not to be suspicious by police. So I'll just take you through the details of the 3. There's Chelsea Porman. She went missing from downtown Vancouver. 18 months later, she was found in a yard in Shaughnessy, the yard of a mansion, one of the richest neighborhoods in Vancouver. Family said it took over a week for her missing persons report to be filed after they reported her missing to police, and police quickly deemed that case to be not suspicious. No foul play was suspected. And there's a case of Noelle Soup. She was just 14 years old. She was living in a ministry-run group home, but she fled that group home. Her body was later found in an apartment in Strathcona. There were 2 other bodies in the apartment with her, a woman and then the man that was living in that apartment. There was a lot of disturbing details in that case, including the fact that when police initially searched that apartment, they only found the man's body. It took them months to find 2 other bodies. That is the only case that remains an active and ongoing criminal investigation. Finally, there was Tatiana Harrison. She went missing from downtown Vancouver like Chelsea Porman. Her body was found on a yacht in a dry dock in Richmond. Her mother told us there was a 20-day delay in starting a search for her.
And so in the past couple of weeks, you have reopened your own investigation. You're reporting on this. What have you found?
Yeah, so what we found is that how Vancouver police handled all 3 of these cases is now under scrutiny. So the Office of the Police Complaints Commissioner, that's an independent body that it can investigate police. They are now looking into how all 3 cases were handled. So we previously did know that in Noelle Soup's case, a neglect of duty investigation into one officer who searched that apartment was already underway. In the Chelsea Porman case, New Westminster Police are now doing an independent review of how multiple Vancouver police officers responded. And now we've learned the OPCC is also investigating Tatiana's case, specifically how VPD handled that missing persons report. Now, as I mentioned, Natasha Harrison, who is Tatiana's mother, says she filed a missing persons report in Vancouver because that's where Tatiana was living at the time. But that file was later transferred to Surrey, and that resulted in a 20-day delay in even beginning a search. And you can imagine if you had a missing loved one and there was 3 weeks and no notice was out that that person was missing, that would be extremely difficult.
All right. And how are the families reacting to the news that all 3 of these cases are now under scrutiny?
I mean, they welcome these investigations, but they're also frustrated because here we are 3 years later. Some of them say they haven't had an update from police in over 2 years. Take a listen to Diamond Porman, who is Chelsea Porman's sister, and she moved to Vancouver from Saskatchewan when Chelsea went missing to help look for her sister.
Some accountability from the VPD and some big changes in how they treat these cases, and in order to avoid this happening ever again with anyone. Like, children are involved in this, and it's really heartbreaking. It's not just my sister, it's other women too. So I feel like any kind of accountability or acknowledgement for that would be an important piece.
And, when she says children are involved in this, she's referencing Noelle Soup, who is just 14 years old. So that the families have really banded together in this. So there is a sense that there could be some accountability coming from these investigations. At the same time, they don't feel they're any closer to learning what happened to their loved ones. In the case of Chelsea Porman specifically, Vancouver police said while they're still investigating how Chelsea got from downtown Vancouver to Shaughnessy because she had a physical disability and could not walk, they're not actively investigating any kind of foul play in her case.
These cases remind me very much of a time in Vancouver when Robert Pickton was at large, targeting women in the downtown east side. We had a VPD geographer talking about how we had a serial killer on the loose. The Vancouver Police Department basically saying that he was wrong. And the investigations, I mean, Wally Opal called them when he took a look at the Pickton murders and the disappearance of all of those missing and murdered women, a blatant failure. Are we seeing those parallels now?
I think we are seeing those parallels. I mean, these were all young Indigenous women, all connected to Vancouver's downtown east side in some way. One of the details of the Pickton inquiry that we learned was that there was an issue of jurisdiction and information not being shared between different police forces, and that was really delaying the investigation and preventing police from making arrests. That's a specific aspect of Tatiana Harrison's case because her mother filed that missing persons report in Vancouver, as she was correct to do, because that's where Tatiana was living. For reasons that are kind of unclear, that file got transferred to Surrey, then over to Richmond, then back to VPD. That results in a 3-week delay. In all these cases, the families have told us they feel that because these women were Indigenous, their cases were not treated with urgency. Chelsea Poorman was living with a physical disability. That alone should have pushed her case to be a high priority case. Lorimer Schenner is a former detective with the VPD. He's also the former head of their missing persons unit. And he says these cases are just screaming for more investigation. But they reveal that police still have a lot of discretion in terms of how they handle cases, and that discretion failed these women.
What it really shines a light on is that it is sadly easy to this day to still victimize young Indigenous people, and that's a crisis. And I don't think that one thing has changed with regards to that. And that to me is it's unconscionable.
And as for the results of these OPCC investigations, we don't know if we'll learn them. We don't know if the families will learn them. In many cases, the commissioner doesn't share that they are even investigating. They chose to release these details because there is public scrutiny and concern about these cases. And I just want to say that these 3 women were loved by their families. I mean, Noelle Soup was in the care of the ministry, but her uncle was driving down from Fort St. John to visit her every 2 weeks. Tatiana Harrison texted her mom every day. Chelsea Poorman was at dinner with her sister hours before she disappeared. These are not people that were forgotten or lost. Their families love them, and we're actively searching for them.
Michelle, thank you for bringing us this update. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Michelle Ghoussoub, reporter with CBC British Columbia's investigative unit. She's got a story where you can read much more about these cases, cbc.ca/BC. You can read all about them on our website.